55. As we've been discussing this morning, the Senate has started to plough through the detail of the government's industrial relations changes. Now, one person who knows quite a deal about this area is the former Federal Industrial Relations Minister and now Liberal Party backbencher Kevin Andrews. And Kevin Andrews joins us now from Canberra. Mr Andrews, good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Virginia.
I guess all those days of work choices must seem like a world away, but when you see the legislation that the government now is proposing, and given that it claims, and your leader has agreed, it has a mandate to institute its industrial relations changes, how do you justify the opposition's continued opposition to it?
Well, whether the government had a mandate when it was elected some 18 months ago, times have changed substantially. We've got a great recession going on in the world. The economy in Australia has slumped. Thousands of people are losing their jobs. Now, what's a sensible thing to do in those circumstances? And that is to look at any proposition and ask, is this going to create jobs? Is it going to actually help people to keep their jobs in Australia? Or is it going to lead to more Australians losing their jobs? And it's quite clear that this legislation will destroy Australian jobs. Well,
it's actually not that clear. In fact, I think in the words of Warren Buffett, the billionaire investor who's been advising Barack Obama on the economic situation over there, you do everything you can in these times and you actually don't really know which of it is going to work. We can't really say whether this legislation is going to create jobs or going to destroy jobs. I guess all you can do is stick with the government's agenda.
No, we know that it's already destroying jobs. Reports from employer organisations are that small business in particular, worried about things like the right of entry and the expanded unfair dismissal provisions, are already not employing people. They're saying, in these circumstances, we're not going to take the chance. And that's taking us right back to the old days where people won't be employed and people will be put off. And if we want to do the best we can, even if you take the view that we're not sure, if we want to do the best we can, we shouldn't be doing anything that's going to risk Australian jobs. And this legislation clearly risks the jobs of thousands of Australians.
Well, the crossbench senators seem to be satisfied on the right of entry provisions. There seem to be some give and some take on that particular score. But when it comes to the definition of small business, part of this argument just seems to me to be a bit bloody-minded, frankly, an argument between 15 and 20. 5 employees either way. Why such a fight?
Well, for 5 employees, whether they've got a job or not, that's very important. This is not some abstract
definition,
discussion.
I mean, the government went to the election with its definition. It said 15, loud and clear. No one was in any doubt, and they were voted in.
Well, it's not just us saying 15 is insignificant. It's also Senator Fielding and Senator Xenophon. They're both saying 20. If you want a definition, the ABS describes a small business as 20 people, and for a manufacturing business, 100 people. So even by the standard definitions, 15 is well below that.
Well, it's interesting. I wonder if all of this discussion has created a bit of division within your side of politics as well, because it was interesting to note that the outspoken backbencher Wilson Tuckey has said this week that you weren't consulted, that federal Liberal MPs were not consulted before Malcolm Turnbull declared last year that work choices was dead. Is that a problem for you as someone who had to do the heavy lifting on work choices?
There's been quite a lot of consultation. When we've had party room discussions.
So Wilson Tuckey's not right there?
We've had party room discussions from virtually day one of the change of government when we went into opposition about these matters. So there's been ongoing consultation about it. And the party room, I believe, is saying that we do not want to support legislation which is going to destroy jobs for Australians, particularly when things have changed. The point here is that what might have been appropriate, and we could argue about that back in 2007, is clearly must be seen in a different light when we've already got thousands of people in Australia who have lost jobs. We know that hours are being reduced. So this is a real problem for Australians. It's not about what work choices might have been about in the past. It's about this piece of legislation and what it will do for the jobs of Australians in the future.
Kevin Andrews, just moving on to another area in which you've had some great experience. There are new figures out from the Immigration Department and they show a spike in the number of asylum seekers arriving in Australian waters, and that's a 7-fold increase in asylum seeker numbers. What do you put this down to?
Well, we've always said if you run up the white flag and say we'll make it easy for people to come into Australia unlawfully, then there is a business out there, there's a trade out there. The going rate to bring someone to Australia is more than $10,000 now, and there are people who are prepared to put boats together, to in effect put packages of people together and bring them to Australia. So if you have a lax law or you indicate that you're not going to be as tough as you were, then the outcome from that will be we'll get more boats, and that's what's happening.
So this is clearly the responsibility of the federal government.
It's clearly the responsibility of the government. I mean, they can do a number of things. They've got to work, obviously, in cooperation with our neighbouring countries like Indonesia and Malaysia, because that's the route by which people tend to come to Australia by boats. But secondly, they need to send a clear message that if you try to jump the queue, if you try to come unlawfully to Australia, then that's not going to be looked upon in any sort of positive way, that we're going to take measures to ensure that this sort of dangerous and unsafe trade in people, or trading in sense of bringing people to Australia, is not something that we will put up with.
Kevin Andrews, good to have you on the program. Thanks so much.
Pleasure, Virginia.